Hello and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce my guest for today, Dr. Maria Limardo. Dr. Maria has an MD and Ph.D. in genetics from Thomas Jefferson Medical College University and in molecular biology from Temple University of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the USA. She specializes in holistic healing interventions and is a consultant with medical and holistic issues, and she's written articles for the Hispanic media. Dr. Maria is certified in many different modalities of energy healing, energy psychology, and energy practices, including intuitive medicine and multidimensional holographic biomagnetism. And she's also a certified aromatherapist. From an early age, she was very involved with metaphysical and intuitive information, and she has discovered that many answers to our problems in life are found imprinted within ourselves, and that we also have the power and ability to modify them. Dr. Maria has a private practice where she corrects energy imbalances, coaches with medical intuition, and helps with empowering personal paths. She also has certification in medical, intuitive, and quantum practitioners and emotional first aid and energy hygiene techniques. She was also the recipient of the Spreading the Word Award in 2021 for the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology because of her knowledge in this field. And she was also a speaker recently at the 25th International ASEP Conference in Baltimore, Maryland, where I got to see her in person. And so welcome so much, Dr. Maria. It's so great to have you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Thank you.
It's just on point.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience about yourself before we talk more about helpers and healers from the heart and intuition and other topics?
Yes, this is something that I've said before, even when I was a trainer for medical intuitive. I imagine myself and I imagine everybody like Felix the cat, if you're old enough to remember Felix the cat cartoons. Yes?
Yes.
So I think all of us have that magic black bag where you can pull tools from there that it's going to have an answer for your life. And in our case, for our clients. And I just put my hand in, and according to what the client was, and what the client wants and what's fitting for that person in that real time, a tool will pop up from there.
Oh, I love that image. Yeah.
Check your tools. Check your bag.
Yeah, how wonderful. It reminds me of magic tricks, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Absolutely. It's the same concept, I think.
So how is it that people, if they've not done this before, or they're not sure if what they're imagining or comes to them is real, do you have any advice on how to help them become more experienced or confident?
Yeah, well, I struggle with that all my life. All my life, because I thought, and of course, my family was telling me that I had an extremely vivid imagination since I was a little kid. I was seeing things, feeling things, smelling things that no one can see that. But how do I know when it's my mind, my intuition, and my imagination? Very simple. After many, many years, your mind will feel in a different part of your body, basically your brain or one of your hemispheres. When you're thinking about something, it will feel right-minded, left-minded, or it will trigger your fight or flight response. So then I'm like, okay, mind, let's take a chill. Let's see what's happening here. When it's from my intuition, it feels great all of my body. It's like a tingling sensation that it's from my heart. And you feel, okay, this is great. And when it's your imagination, you had like a doubt in front of it. It's like a question mark. And then I go, okay, this is delusional, or I'm imagining things. But what I do, I go back to my heart and I ask my heart for the right guidance at that moment.
Beautiful. You have such a well-developed vocabulary, a library, an encyclopedia of intuitive knowledge in your mind and body. And so I'm imagining that's something that maybe you were born with. Is that true? Or you've developed it over time?
I think I did. And I didn't realize that till when I was older. People who are intuitive from our age, from our time, we were questioned a lot by everybody. In fact, my mom at some point thought I was schizophrenic because of the information that I had. And I was treated for it, not having that then. And one of my psychologists did a regression, and I went back to the light because I remember being a little kid, and I thought was my imagination, coming through a tube, and then there was light, and then I'm stuck in this belly, but I could hear everything that was going on outside. And I could remember actually coming in and out of the belly of my mom, but I couldn't comprehend what was going on. And it was that I didn't had will then. I was under my mom's care literally for 9 months. And then I remember when I was born, and I remember, sadly, my mom didn't have the greatest pregnancy. And I remember my dad screaming and all of that. And I remember also being a little kid afraid of my dad because I had those memories.
Wow.
And these great psychologists did these hypnosis, regressive hypnosis. And then I went to her and I'm like, oh, I'm not crazy. I remember all of this. She's like, well, have you thought that you could be an empath, an intuitive, or you had this? And then she had a questionnaire for me. I was, I think, 22 years old. And, asking, what my abilities. And then I realized I had almost all of the things that she asked me.
Yeah.
And, can you feel smells? Can you have answers? I remember this one. Can you have answer of things through music? I had a problem and I didn't know how to solve it. And then this song popped up in my head immediately. So I'm like, yes, my mom says I'm a singer. All the time I would sing things. That was the answer to whatever I was, my query was. So it was fun, but it was difficult.
Can I just pause you there for a moment?
Sure.
People who can't see me reacting may have heard me giggle, but as you were talking about music, I'm the same way. I get lots of different information from different modes, often through lyrics. And so I started hearing the song, how do you solve a problem like Maria?
Yes, I'm getting goosebumps. Absolutely. And that helped me a lot through when I was studying, because I would get answers to the questions in my test through music. So my teachers, some of them, especially in elementary school, they were annoyed because I was taking a test and I started singing. And she's like, "You're distracting the kids." And I'm like, "I need this song so I can write the answer."
I see.
So people would say that I had ADD or ADHD because I was blurring out answers in my head.
Yeah.
Or smells or songs. So
You're bringing up so many important points about intuition and mental health and mental illness and diagnosis and overlapping qualities. So I just want to kind of break it down a little bit and
sure.
just start off by first responding, if I may, to what you said about schizophrenia. What an incredible story that you were identified as being different. And the assumption was there was something wrong with mental illness and that you were quote unquote crazy or schizophrenic as a young person. And that could have been your burden and label for life. And how fortunate that you had care from a very astute and well-trained professional who was able to discern through your awareness and theirs that there was something very solid here that was not about mental illness at all, that was in fact about enhanced mental ability. How many of us can remember our birth and all of this information that can be verified? And so it really proves to you and the people around you that you have a super sensitivity.
Yeah. One of the things I remember vividly, it's my mom breastfeeding me. And she loved what it's called the football position, that you put the baby here.
Under the arm.
Under the arm. And I remember hating that position because it hurt my arm, but I was so hungry that I needed to eat. And I remember soothing myself, this is only going to be like 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow.
So, and I remember the smell of the skin of my mom.
Yeah.
And the smell of the milk.
Wow.
So I told my mom this when I was 5 years old, and I'm like, I didn't like the way you were feeding me. You force feeding me in my arms. And my mom was like, you don't know that. You were a baby. No, you grabbed me like this. And she's like, oh, maybe your aunts told you, or maybe your cousin told you, or maybe your grandma told you that I was feeding you like that.
Yeah.
But I had this vivid memory of that.
It's incredible. And it's so, unfortunately, back in the day, and maybe still today, there's so much doubt. There's fear around knowing things. Because if you can know you're pregnant, your experience during your mother's pregnancy and these nursing memories, then that's a threat to people, because then what else can you know? What other secrets and information and kind of superpowers might you have, or we have, people who listen and maybe feel intimidated or defensive, or there's a belief that maybe this is coming from a place that's not a good place. And so then you're put into this position of being an other, not me. Yeah.
Yeah. And also after knowing what I knew when I was, going through grad school and medical school and, going to those classes and finally going, oh, I understand myself. There was a period that I was really mad at my mom. She didn't understand me. This happened. And, she didn't take care of me. And then I came to the realization that she did the best they could. And actually, taking a medicine during my teenage years that numbed me, I think it protected me.
Oh.
Because if I was going to be that crazy girl during the teenage years, imagine how much bullying I would have had then.
Well, I
So,
mean, bullying, but I'm also thinking about the overwhelm, just
yeah,
to your neurological system, your psyche, your sense of self, because we do find that intuitive abilities shift with hormonal changes.
yeah,
And so as you're going through puberty, then, menopause, childbearing, childbirth or nursing or whatever, that these, you're going to have different intensities and abilities. The same happened with me when I was pregnant with my first child, is when my third eye kind of really opened up and I started thinking I was crazy and that I was hallucinating because I was seeing things in the room in the middle of the night that scared the bejesus out of me, and I would wake up screaming. And I had someone who I was talking to, my supervising psychologist, and she was recognizing the images I saw that were part of a book and some other telepathic communication with other people. So it helped ground me. But I was like, sign me up for meds in the hospital. I can't work anymore and crazy. Yeah.
I know. I had that feeling too, especially when you had family that wouldn't understand what you
Mm-hmm.
were going through. And I said, okay, maybe I need this meds. And maybe if I'm becoming numb and I don't have this, it will be better for me to just concentrate in studying or becoming a better person. Um, One of the things I took sertraline for so many years, and you probably know this is a very difficult medicine to get off from.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a good psychiatrist that it took 3 years
Wow.
tapering it down. Um, but I remember the first winter I was living in Philadelphia that I was completely free. And he said, you know, you don't have anything in your body anymore. I want you to be mindful that of your behavior, ask your husband to, you know, see your behavior. And it was a storm, snowstorm, a blizzard. And I remember just intuitively, I put my hands over the window
Mm-hmm.
like this, and I saw my aura that I haven't seen since I was a little kid.
Oh.
All the colors. I'm like, oh my God, my colors are bad. And my
Mm-hmm.
husband is like, what colors? And I'm like, look, don't you see them? There are colors in my hands. It's like, tell your doctor that you're seeing those. And it's like, no, this is a natural thing for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, I had it when I was a kid.
Yep.
This is back.
Yep.
This is back. So,
Wow. Like a grand reunion of your
yeah,
psychic abilities and your artistry and creativity. You're plugged in again.
yeah.
I
So,
love the description too, because you can imagine the whiteout blizzard, which is perfect background because there's no interference. You can see all the colors because there's nothing else to get in the way of the absorption of the light. And so you can fully see the colors.
and also, I think what helped me, it's that when you have a blizzard, there is no sound, even
Oh.
though you see the wind and everything moving. It's just the snow laying on the floor quietly.
Mm.
So I think it was the perfect moment for that to happen to me.
I wonder if also like barometric pressure changes, a lot of people are intuitive
Absolutely.
around things that are environmental to the earth, like weather and pressure and elevation and so on.
Yeah, you bring out a great point, um, because I do muscle testing with my
Mm-hmm.
clients. It could be either the sway test. And I always, when I teach them that, I said, you know, even if because you think your body is saying yes here, it's going to be the same way at your house. Always test yourself first because gravity changes where you are. You might have a river underneath. You
Mm-hmm.
might have, you know, EMF in your house, and it's going to change the way you respond. So
Mm-hmm.
what you think is your yes here in my office, it might not be a yes in your home.
Got it. Yeah.
Be aware
Mm-hmm.
of that, your environment And all the living things, even if you think they are not living, like a chair, a table, they have some kind of frequency.
Yeah.
That affect you.
Right, because everything vibrates. And so when we are looking at this unconscious processing of information through muscle testing or the sway test, and there's a blog that I'm going to add to the resource list on muscle testing if people don't know what that is, but it's a way of gathering information from the unconscious through the body. And it can be used through a pendulum or through using the way that the body moves forward and back, like a sway test, or tension within the muscles, and how solid or bouncy they are, responsive to questioning. So this is a very specific way of gathering information, and it's easily corrupted or influenced by allergies, by exhaustion, and as you're saying, by things in the environment that we may not think about. And so we have to be pretty clear ahead of time before we ask a question to calibrate that system. Yeah. So that's wonderful information. I just did want to mention briefly about the ADD, because for more than 20 years, I did psychological testing for kids with learning differences. And I found what you're talking about, that there was a big overlap between what's called ADD or ADHD and attention, not so much the hyperactivity, more the inattention, but sometimes the impulsivity and hyperactivity, and heightened sensitivities for other things like intuitive information. And so there is a lot of overlap between, like, if you're not paying attention to this right now, I mean, if the phone rang and I turned my head, people would think that's normal. But if I got an intuitive alarm in my mind, body, spirit system and turned my head, then you think I'm distractible. But really, I'm just paying attention in multiple ways that might not be as obvious to the person watching me.
Absolutely. That's the way I operate.
Yeah.
It is incredible. It's like some people, it's like, I'm talking to you. And it's like, okay, I know she's talking to me, but I can hear her or him, yeah. But I'm also gathering information. And sometimes I tell people, it's like, I am an antenna.
Yeah.
Understand that. And an antenna, it's receiving information from everywhere.
Yeah.
And then, solidly put it in one solid block that you then can go through it and say, oh, okay, this means this, that means that.
Right. And to have filters so that you're not bombarded all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about that, I have developed sometimes certain strategies for myself to be just in the now.
Yep.
So not to be around people. One of those is grounding. Mm-hmm. I use a grounding mat here. The other thing I have, like a sentence that I say, more like a prayer that I say, so I could be in my presence with the person. And in my work have shifted through the years. When I started, I was so hungry to learn how to read people that my antenna was like open and reading everything in the person. And then I said, is this helping me? Is this really helping the person? And the answer is not at all. Mm-hmm. Because you're doing the work for the person.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, it's not going to solve me a problem or solve the person a problem. And I became my website, it's called A Bridge to Healing.
Okay.
So one day I was thinking, no, I have to hold the person to walk through a bridge. And the person, if she's willing to, just let me go in the middle of the bridge, it's fine. So I'm just going to give her information or give him information that it's going to take them to aha moments and go and tell me, Maria, I can see myself. I know now, where is this coming from? Or I could see my body and I can see too, So it has evolved in that way. So I don't get that tired or sick.
Yes. Beautiful. And you're not doing the homework for the other person who then is
Exactly.
like sitting back and you may as well take the class. So,
Yeah.
wow, it's beautiful. So I'm seeing images of like, I love the image of the bridge. I can see you standing on the bridge and helping someone like they're scared or they're hesitant. You're holding their hand and then they start dancing off the bridge by themselves because they're so happy with what you've shared with them. But also I see it like a midwife process or an advocate where you're standing next to us, next to the person and helping them see. And so then they can go on their own.
Yes, I usually, this is what I do. I don't see people more than 7 times.
Okay.
And that is through a year. And I said, this is where I'm starting. And I'm going to give you a lot of tools. So by the 7th appointment, you are full of tools and you became Felix the cat for that specific issue we're working. And usually by the 7th, they are well equipped. And I said, well, that doesn't mean if you're, again, in a situation that you need my help, I'm here.
Uh-huh.
But I want you, before coming here, look at your tools, see if you are doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
and see if you can figure it out by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you cannot figure it out, call me because I might need to refer you to a mental specialist or a family doctor, endocrinologist, what have you.
Got it.
But assess yourself first, always,
Beautiful.
and then ask for help.
Yep. Which is like a great, we're so used to going to others for advice. They say that the efficiency of our DNA is increasing very slowly. And that, animals have a sense of when they're injured or what they need. They don't need to go to the doctor. I mean, they do if, a vet, of
Yeah,
course, if something's
obviously.
serious, but if it's more mild or whatever, they have a sense of natural healing, natural ability. You've seen animals like laying out on the grass and stretching out or resting more or going into height, whatever it is. And humans are, it takes us forever to grow. I mean, months, years, sometimes decades. And, it takes a long time to be self-knowing, and we don't get up and walk right away and all the rest. But they say that as our DNA becomes more efficient, that we will have a better feedback loop, a better integrity and knowledge. And I see that teaching people about their natural intuitive abilities and helping them unblock the things they've learned that get in the way is fostering that self-knowledge so that self-care can come in and discernment. So if you do go to a professional, a medium, a psychic, a physician, whatever it is, a coach, you're going to have a better discernment about, is this right for me right now in this way?
Absolutely. You put it beautifully. And that's what I tell my clients is you have to discern, you have to, maybe when they come in and probably for the first time, they are completely lost.
Yeah.
But I believe you have the same end in mind for your clients to learn how to discern and take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I love to do with people, usually everybody comes and they have a grudge with somebody,
Hmm.
spouse, sisters, brothers, boss, whatever. And they go, because they did this to me and they, whatever to me. And I said, okay, let's look at your body. How is it responding? What is it that you are feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
I said, you got to be aware. Then you need to feel what's happening as yours, not as somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you feel it, you're able to release it. Once released, then we can integrate whatever you feel. It's your goal, your desire, your highest good. So, they look at it themselves and then they go, oh no, it's me who's feeling that. It's me. Because this person, it's not even talking to me, and the life continue as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it's great that you're recognizing that. And that's when I tell them, okay, is it from your right mind, left mind, or is it coming from your heart?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go from there, and I'll pull a trick from my bag.
Beautiful. It sounds like you're a loving and patient and excellent guide for people, and that, you know, you have a very warm way about you, and clearly a lot of training and intelligence behind that. So what a great package, and to help them feel confident. But as we're coming to the end of this time together today, I'm wondering, is there anything else you'd like to share, maybe about a personal story or some advice that you can share, or something else?
Well, one thing, my kids grew up, I told them all the time, it's be aware of your surroundings, because your intuition is 150% right. So I still believe that is true. It now I realize it might be too much for a kid to tell them that. But I was coming from, I was paying attention to my intuition, and actually it wreaked havoc. But pay attention to the signs. Everything is a sign. Don't disregard a word, a song, something that comes up in your phone as, oh, this came up. Just think, why it came up, what answer it has for you. You might not see it immediately, but eventually you would say, oh, that's why it came up for me. And that had the answer. Same thing I tell people. Look at the numbers. If you get 222, 111, 333, 555, look for the meaning of it. If you can get in this word in your mind, look for what it is.
Yeah.
Also with dreams, dreams are full of delightful information. So yes,
they can delight and the dreams that delight and terrify.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And moving forward with what's happening right now, and as a geneticist, I can tell you, our DNA has changed so much for the better, not for the worse, for the better. We might see it as changing, having more diseases or having more problems, but I see them as upgrades. I see them as evolution, not as a bad thing. Wow. Look at us. We live longer than a century ago. Definitely. So those changes, even though, yes, there are plastics outside there, you need to eat better. But regardless of that, we are living longer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very positive and hopeful message. There's been so much fear, around different political and cultural discussion. A lot of fear, and the fear closes everything down, of course. But it's so hopeful to hear from you, who knows the body so well on many levels, to think about these upgrades. We talk sometimes about a healing crisis, that you have to kind of go through the dark night or the dip, that you're like, why is this happening? I feel so sick, and I want to put my head under the covers and disappear. This isn't living. But then when you come around the other side of it, eventually you wind up with more resilience and lessons and greater strength, and maybe even more capacity for joy. So you can't really just take the one snapshot of how am I doing right now. You kind of have to pull back a bit and see the trajectory over time.
Absolutely. You probably see that with your clients with depression.
Yeah.
I do not, unless it's really a clinical depression and there is a history throughout their life, I don't see them. I said, you need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist that specializes in that. But when I see people coming in with depression about a life change, then I said, nurse it, because you need to go through that. You need to feel it intensely with all the colors, everything that is happening. because these came in here to push you to an upgrade.
Yeah.
And after we cross that bridge, there is going to be light.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go like, oh my God, that depression was a huge teaching moment.
I have found that some of the best peacefulness that comes to clients from me is when people understand that there's a shift happening bigger than just inside themselves or their world. When they start to hear about global trends or tendencies, for example, we're having a lot of solar flares now. They come and go in waves that are predictable. And so when people hear that there's going to be a lot of solar flares and they're sensitive and they don't know why, I said, well, why don't you track that for a minute and, a week or a month and see if the solar flares are also influencing your sensitivities or feeling ungrounded or more agitated. And when they find something like that that's outside themselves, they calm down because they aren't blaming themselves. Oh, what's wrong with me? They're like, oh, I'm in rhythm with this. And they can relax and then also know that there's a stopping point. We don't always have those even rhythms of high and low like the solar flares, but the idea here is that we're not alone and that we're going through these growing pains kind of collectively right now. And it sort of takes off some of that extra suffering that we can tend to add to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great, amazing. It is sometimes we blame ourselves for everything without looking at our environment, and that means the earth and the planets. But I'm not a big in astrology. That's my thing. I don't understand it basically.
Okay.
But in physics,
yes,
you know that the planets are pulling
right
to keep a balance. So if something shifts, that it's going to affect your body. So that's one thing. That's a great advice that you're giving here, to look at the solar flares.
Yeah.
It's totally out of your control. So, you just need to forgive yourself and forgive, Father, Son, for being alive and, go through that.
Yep. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I know I could talk to you for a long time. And I so appreciate all the gifts you're sharing. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Well, my website is www.marialimardo.com. They could also find me in Instagram, Maria Limardo, Ph.D., and my phone number, but I guess you're going to supply that
yes.
in whatever information you're going to give about me.
Yes.
And, I'm here for whoever needs a different kind of help.
Yeah. Beautiful. And how lucky we are to have you.
One important thing.
Yes.
That I need to say, and I know you are in the same tone as me. We are in a breaking point for these kind of therapies. Yeah. When I was growing up, I couldn't even prove that I was seeing things, or that my hands had light, or that I could actually, one of the techniques I do is quantum charts, and I use my fingers to send a laser, which people can say, oh, it's imaginary laser. No. We have science now backing up everything what we do. Well, what it happens to be is we have chakra centers in all our fingers, and we have meridians, and our nails are crystals. So when you, with your intuition, you just focus on something, you actually let photons go throughout the fingers to change whatever you want to change. So what I want to say here is how much of a creator, manifestator, and powerful person we are. And we haven't noticed yet, but the science is catching up with us.
Well, artists and theologians knew
Yes.
all of the energy coming off the fingers, or like Zeus with, bolts of lightning.
Zeus. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. Is it the collagen? What is it at the nails?
Keratin in the nails. It's a crystal.
Yeah.
Like the collagen in our bodies. My specialty when I was doing genetics was collagen. And I didn't know then why I was in that area. And about 10 years ago, I went, oh, that's why. It's a circuitry of fluid crystal. It's like the crystal in our screens or the crystals in our phone. So it's the same thing. It's a fluid crystal. Wow. So I'm like, wow, yes, that's why I had to study collagen. So
I could go on and on with you. It's so fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your wisdom with the audience. And I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.